Hi students. So coming to our next chapter, so value of supply. So generally, uh, in case of GST is a ad valorem basis level. What is meant by ad valorem basis level? Means a fixed percentage is applied on a transaction value. So here, what is meant by transaction value? And on what figure we levy the respected tax rate, which items are included in the value of supply and which items are not included in the value of supply, and those we are going to discuss under section 15 of CGST Act 2017 in this session. So first of all, what is meant by value of supply? And in this case, so the value of supply simply is nothing but section 15(1) plus section 15(2) minus section 15(3). 15(1) defines what is meant by transaction value and what are the conditions to be considered for considering that price as a transaction value. Section 15(2) says which items are included in the value of supply, and 15(3) says which items are not included in the value of supply. Okay. So first, value of supply. Section 15(1) says the value of supply of goods or services or both shall be the transaction value. Shall be the transaction value. What is meant by transaction value? The transaction value is nothing but the price actually paid or payable for the respected supply of goods or services. For the respected supply of goods or services. So here the price stands for what? Money. The money paid or payable by the party. So it may be paid immediately, simply is nothing but cash sales. Or in case of payable, that party agreed to pay after some period, nothing but what? Credit sale. The price actually paid or agreed to pay after some period for the said supply of goods or services. And remember, that amount may be paid either by recipient or by third party on behalf of the recipient. Both are included in the definition of what? Value, transaction value. But this price is considered as a transaction value only when it is satisfying these two conditions. One is the supplier and the recipient are unrelated to each other and the price is a sole consideration. So supplier and the recipient both should be unrelated. What is meant by related party? Already we discussed in the chapter supply, nothing but taxable event under GST. So here the both parties should be unrelated. If they're related, then what happened? So the price will be controlled by any one of the party. So means that price is a biased price and will not be considered for the purpose of supply, for the purpose of GST. So both should be unrelated to each other and prices should be in sole consideration, and means that amount should be received in money only. So if the supplier and the recipient are related to each other, then section 15 is not applied. And if the price is not a sole consideration, means amount received partly in cash and partly in kind or in kind, etc. in this way, not in sole consideration, then section 15 is not applied. In that case, the value of the supply is determined as per determination of value of supply of CGST rules. As per that, we have to calculate. So section 15(1) says value of supply stands for transaction value. What is meant by transaction value? The price actually paid or payable for the said supply of goods or services or both, where the supplier and the recipient are unrelated to each other and price is a sole consideration. If the supplier and recipient are related to each other, then section 15 is not applied. And if the price is not a sole consideration, means if you receive the respected consideration in kind or partly in kind or partly in cash, there the section 15 is not applied. Okay. And this is the first one, section 15(1). Then second one, section 15(2). So which items are included in the definition of the supply? The first one is taxes other under other statutes. Taxes under other statutes means majority of the indirect taxes are already subsumed under GST. Already subsumed under GST. But some taxes are there which are not subsumed under GST, and some taxes are there which are levied along with the GST on the respected supply. For example, in case of tobacco product is there. So if the, for example, purchase of the price of the tobacco is, for example, 10,000, then tobacco is liable for both excise duty as well as GST. Then excise duty say 10%, say 1,000. Then the value of supply for the purpose of GST is 11,000. On this amount, GST rate is imposed. So other than GST, whatever the tax you paid, other than GST stands for here, CGST, SGST, IGST or UTGST or even compensation cess also. So any tax levied as per GST laws, and those are not included. So other than GST, whatever the tax we paid, those are included in the value of supply. Best example, municipal tax paid while supplying the goods if any. And even so in case of tobacco product, excise duty. So excise duty is levied along with GST. So excise duty paid on the manufacturing of tobacco product is included in the value of supply for the purpose of calculation of GST. And so note, this is the one of the important circular. TCS under the provisions of Income Tax Act 1961 would not be included as it is an interim levy not having the character of tax. So as per IT Act, Income Tax Act, TCS is collected by the party. So in that case, the TCS, whatever the TCS collected will be available to the respected recipient as a deduction. So it is not included in the value of the supply. He clearly stated any TCS collected as per Income Tax Act would not be included in the value of the supplier. Would not be included in the value of the supplier. Okay. Next, the payment made to the third party. Payment made to the third party. For example, supplier is the recipient is the, and he pay around 1 lakh to the supplier and also to the third party rupees 10,000 he paid. And this 10,000 paid to the third party on behalf of the supplier, on behalf of the supplier. Then the question is whether this 10,000 is included in the value of supplier. So means then what is the value of supplier? 1 lakh plus 10,000 or only 1 lakh, or only 1 lakh. Here it says the 10,000 is included in the value of supply only if it is satisfying the two conditions. The first one is the supplier has a contractual obligation to pay the debt, and the supplier is liable to pay the amount to the third party. There is a contractual obligation. And the second one, the said payment, this 10,000 paid by the recipient to the third party is in relation to the supply. Is in relation to the supply. If these two conditions are satisfied, the supplier has a contractual obligation to pay the amount to the third party, and that amount paid by the recipient on behalf of the supplier to the third party is done in relation to the supply. If these two conditions are satisfied, then it is included in value of supply. Then how much amount is their value? 1,10,000. Otherwise, the value of supply is equal to 1 lakh. The 10,000 is not included. So any payments made to the third party by the recipient on behalf of the supplier is included in the value of supply only if that payment is linked to that supply, and that supplier should have a contractual obligation to pay that amount to that third party. Okay, next. And here remember one more point here. The contractual obligation between the supplier and the third party is not relating to the current supply. Is not considerable, not related to this current supply, even though it is live, even though it is included. So this transaction made between these two parties here, that there is a there must be a contractual obligation to pay that amount to the third part. That is the one of the point we have to satisfy. But remember, coming to the current supply and coming to this contractual obligation, is there any relation is required? The answer is no. And both may not be related. Both are not required to be related to each other. But remember, the 10,000 paid by the supplier, so recipient to the third party, should be in linked to the current supply. Should be in linked to the current supply. Then only it is included in value of supply. Okay. Then only it is included in value of supply. Next, incidental expenses. What is meant by incidental? Like any expenses incurred in supporting to that supply. So those are always included, like commission, packing, charged by the supplier to the recipient of the supply. Those are included. Any amount charged for anything done by the supplier in respect of supply of goods or services at the time or before the delivery of the goods, or as the case may be, the supply of services. So before the delivery of the respected supply to the recipient, whatever the amount they spent, like commission or packing charges or transportation, etc., everything is included. But coming to the some items like outward freight, in case of outward freight, there is a separate clause. Outward freight is there. So for example, supplier and recipient is there, and supplier agreed to supply the respected goods at X factory. It is what the X factory supply. It is what the X factory supply. In that case, X factory supply means what? The supplier agreed, the supplier's portion will over once the goods removed from the supplier premises. The transportation is completely the responsibility of the recipient, and he pay the freight charges, and he pay the insurance charges, transit insurance effect. So those are not relating to the supplier. Supplier is not responsible for the freight. Supplier is not responsible for that insurance. And supplier is responsible only till the removal of the product from their premises. That type of supply is covered under X factory supply. In that case, outward freight is not included in value of supply. Outward freight is not included in value of supply. And next, for example, if the supplier and recipient is there, and supplier agreed to supply the product at the doorstep of the recipient. Supplier agreed to supply the product at the doorstep of the recipient. And here, supplier is responsible for delivery of the goods. And it means he responsible for supply, freight, and transit insurance effect. Whatever the things they have, and here he pay the freight, he pay the transit insurance, and the later the total amount collected from the recipient. But here this is called as what? Destination based supply. So recipient destination based supply. Here till the product reach the recipient, whatever the activity happen, completely in the hands of, completely responsible in the hands of the supplier. So this is a composite supply. This is a composite supply. So because one of the supply is the principal supply, nothing but what? Supply of goods. So in case of composite supply, the taxability of each and every component is done based on taxability of the principal supply. So the total amount is treated as the supply of goods. Supply of goods. So here supply of goods including what? Freight also. Outward freight is also included. Outward freight is also included. So whether it is a ex-factory supply or at the doorstep of the recipient, nothing but destination based supply. So if the supplier agrees to deliver the goods at a customer premises, agreed to deliver the goods at customer premises. So means what? Destination based supply. Then that supply is a becomes what? Composite supply. So the supply of good is the principal supply. So the freight and insurance are part of the value of supply of goods and are taxable accordingly. But in case of ex-factory basis, the outward freight is not included in the value of supply. Outward freight is not included in value of supply. Okay. This is the third one. First one is, so any taxes other than GST are included. Second one is payment made to the third party on behalf of the supplier is included. If the supplier is having a contractual obligation to pay that amount and the recipient to pay that amount to the third party which is linked to the supply. And third one, incidental expenses. And fourth one, interest or late fee or penalties if any. So here late fee or penalties, if any, for delayed payment. For delayed payment is included in value of supply. Is included in value of supply. So, for example, if the recipient, so supplier supply the goods worth rupees 1 lakh. He agreed to pay the amount. Recipient agreed to pay the amount to the supplier within 1 month. And in the agreement, it clearly states if the recipient unable to make the payment in 1 month, then recipient required to pay some additional charges in the form of interest. So here the total amount to pay, this party pay the amount after 1 month. After 1 month, then total amount liable to pay equal to what? 1 lakh plus interest, say a 10,000. Total 1 lakh 10,000 they pay. Total 1 lakh 10,000. And here the total amount is treated as a value of a supply. Total 1 lakh 10,000 is treated as value of supply. But the coming to the another point, in 1 lakh 10,000, the total amount is not taxable at one time. Here, the coming to the 1 lakh, the time of supply is calculated as per section 12.2 or section 12.3 of CGST Act. Depends upon whether it is forward charge or reverse charge. But coming to the additional 10,000, the time of supply is calculated as per section 12.6. In case of services, we follow what? Section 13.6. Okay. So generally it is included in value of supply. But the payment of GST on that additional part will be done as per section 12.6 and 36. Nothing but what? On what basis? Receipt basis. So the date of receipt of payment, the date of receipt of that additional payment, interest or late fee or penalty, etc. At that time, that is taxable. At that time, that is taxable. And remember this point. So any interest or late fee or penalty is paid. So in addition to the respected consideration is also forming part of the value of a supply. Is also forming part of value of supply. But here actual supply is a liable. Actual supply is a liable at the point of taxation stated as per section 12.2 or 12.3. But additional amount of interest, penalty or late fee is liable as at the point of taxation stated as per section 12.6 or 13.6 of CGST Act 2017. Okay. So the interest or late fee, penalty, delayed payment for consideration of any supply, those are included in the value of supply. Okay. Then this is the fourth point. Then coming to the next one, fifth one, subsidy. So he clearly stated the subsidy linked, the subsidy directly linked to the price, excluding the subsidy provided by central government or state government, is included in the value of supply. Who is providing the respected subsidy? Who is providing the respected subsidy? Imagine if the subsidy provided by the central government or state government, remember, subsidy provided by central government or state government only excluded, is not included in value of supply. But if the subsidy provided by local authority is included in value of supply. So, if any subsidy provided by local authority or any subsidy provided by other parties other than central government or state government like NGOs or included in the value of supply, provided that subsidy is directly linked to the supply. If the subsidy is directly linked to the supply, if the subsidy is not directly linked to the supply, it is also not included. It is also not included. But here, one of the important point in this case here, for example, the price of goods is stated as net of supply, net of subsidy. Subsidy, net of subsidy, or after adjustment of subsidy, say 1 lakh. For example, subsidy provided by central government or by others, say 1 lakh. Then what is the subsidy treatment? Then say subsidy is around 20,000 is there. Then the 20,000 is included or not included here? Not included. But here we have to include. We have to include. Then what is the value of supply? Here 1 lakh. Here 1 lakh 20,000 is said to be a value of supply. Said to be a value of supply. For example, case 2 stated the price of the goods before adjustment of subsidy or including subsidy, say 1 lakh, including subsidy, sorry, how much amount? 1 lakh 20,000 is there, 1 lakh 20,000. Then what is the subsidy treatment? So here the subsidy provided by the central government or state government not included in value of supply, but in this case already included, so we have to eliminate it. We have to eliminate. So 20,000 is ready. But in the second scenario, subsidy provided by others, which is linked to the supply, is included in value of supply. But here it was already included. So no, so another treatment is required. Then what is the value of supply? 1 lakh and 1 lakh 20,000. Okay. So be careful about the price of the goods or the price of the supply provided in the problem, whether it is after adjusting subsidy or before adjusting subsidy. If it is after adjusting subsidy, then subsidy is included, will be added separately if it is provided by persons other than central government or state government. If the price stated is including subsidy or before adjustment of subsidy, then the subsidy is required to be reduced only if it is provided by central government or state government, as it is not required to be included in value of supply. Okay, so this is relating to subsidy. I hope you guys understood. Section 15(2). We are discussing what section 15.2. So inclusions in the value of supply. Which items are included? Taxes other than GST are included. And remember, but TCS is not included in value of supply. And second one is any in amount paid by the recipient to the third party on behalf of the supplier are included, provided if the supplier has a contractual obligation to pay the amount to the third party and the payment is linked to that supply. And third one, incidental expenses included, but there we discussed outward freight. If the out in case of ex-factory sale, not included, and in case of destination based, it is covered under composite supply, and total amount is treated as supply of goods. And fourth one, so interest or late fee or damages, if any, we paid additionally for delayed payment, then those are included. But there, coming to the actual original value of supply is taxable at the time of we calculated as per section 12.2 or 12.3. But coming to the additional payment, we computed at the time we computed as per section 12.6 or 13.6. Okay. And the last one, subsidy. Subsidy provided, subsidy which is directly linked to the supply and provided by persons other than central government and state government are included in value of supply. This is about what section 15.2 of CGST Act. Next. So coming to the discount. So first of all, is a discount is provided before the supply of goods or services or at the time of supply of goods or services, then it is excluded. Then it is excluded. If any discount provided before supply or at the time of supply, that means it was mentioned in the value, it was mentioned in the invoice, then it is excluded. But if it is provided after supply of goods or services or both, after supply of goods or services or both, in that case, how we, whether it is excluded or not. For example, supplier and recipient is the August and September and October. Here in the month of August, the value of supply is 2 lakhs. GST is 36,000. CGST and SGST at 18%, 36,000. Total invoice price is 2,36,000. 2,36,000. And one point is mentioned. One point is mentioned in the agreement, means if recipient pay the amount in 1 month, recipient pay the amount in 1 month, for example 40 days, not in 1 month, 40 days, then 10% discount is provided. 10% discount is provided and the recipient pay the amount so in 30 days only, and he pay the total amount in the month of September, in the month of September, and we made the supply in the month of August and we pay the amount in the month of September, then he is eligible to get the discount. And so we have to reduce the amount receivable from the respected party. So supplier has to issue one document called as what? Credit note. What is the reduction we provided? So 20,000 is reduced. 20,000. Nothing but reduction stands for what? Discount. Then on 20,000, the portion of GST is there. How much amount? 3,600. 3,600. 3,600. Then the question is, this 20,000 is included in the value of supply or reduced from the value of supply? Value of supply. Then The answer, three conditions are stated. If these three conditions are stated, then the discount is excluded, otherwise not excluded. And the first one is, it has to be mentioned in invoice. At the time of raising the invoice, it was mentioned, right? It has to be mentioned in the invoice. And second point is, and the second point is, so first point is what? The discount provided after the supply of goods or services or both should be mentioned in the invoice. Should be mentioned in the invoice. Specifically mentioned in the invoice. Clearly stated. And second one is, the discount is related to that supply. Here, the discount provided is relating to the original supply. Correct? Then the third one is, recipient has to reverse the GST to the government. And GST stands for ITC to the government. Recipient has to reverse, because while making the payment of 36,000 on outward supply, he claimed ITC of 36,000. But in the month of September, he provided some discount, 20,000 to that party. The 20,000 discount was already mentioned in the agreement, and that is relating to the original invoice, original supply. And so he has to reduce 20,000 from value of supply. Then the revised value of supply is 1,80,000 only. On 1,80,000 only supplier is liable to pay to the government. But already he paid how much amount? 36,000 he paid. 36,000. So to the extent of deduction, some 33,600 amount of GST is there, that will be eligible for reduction from the outward supply or outward GST in the month of October, while filing the return relating to the September to the supplier. But only when that reduction is available, if that ITC reversed by the recipient to the government. If ITC reversed by the recipient to the government. Okay. So after supply, three conditions required to be satisfied. One is, it must be mentioned in the agreement. For example, if the term relating to the discount not mentioned in the agreement, then not required to be excluded. Second one, the discount should be related to the original supply. And input tax credit to the extent of the discount should be reversed by the recipient of the supply relating to the discount given. And the reversal ensures supplier output tax liability is reduced by the same amount. That amount is reduced from the output tax liability in the next month. Understood. This is section 15.3. Nothing but exclusions relating to what? Discount. Okay. And some clarifications we have relating to the discount. So first, staggered discount. Staggered discount is relating to what? So buy more, save more. Means the rate of discount increases with increase in purchase volume. Rate of discount increases with increase in purchase value. So, and this term relating to the staggered discount is mentioned in the invoice, clearly mentioned in the invoice. So it is excluded from the value of supply as it is included in the invoice. And it is relating to what? One may get 10% discount on purchase of 5,000, 20% discount on purchase of 15,000, 30% on 30,000, etc. And next one, periodic or year ending or volume discount. So these discounts are provided generally by the supplier to the retailers, stockist, and such discounts are established in terms of the agreement. That was clearly mentioned in the agreement. Entered into at or before the time of supply, though not shown on the invoice, as the actual quantum of such a discount gets determined after supply has been affected and generally at the end of the year. and such discounts are passed on by the supplier through the credit note. Through the credit note. So here such discounts are excluded because it was included, it was mentioned in the invoice, and even though that whole discount is calculated at the end of the year, it was mentioned in the invoice and it is relating to the respected supply of goods or services or both. And so credit note has been issued, so ITC has to be reversed. If the all parameters relating to section 15(2), so 15(3) relating to discount are satisfied, then the discount is excluded. Otherwise, not excluded. Next, secondary discount. Secondary discount is generally provided after supply of the goods or services or both, and those are not mentioned in the invoice. Those are not mentioned in the invoice, and we don't know are we going to provide the respected discount or not in the future. So it is not known at the time of supply, and means not mentioned in the invoice and not considered at the time of supply. So it is not excluded, included in the value of supply. Secondary discount. Okay. And Mr. A supply 10,000 packets of biscuits to Mr. B at 10 rupee per packet. Afterwards, Mr. A revalues it at 9 rupee per packet. Subsequently, A issues a credit note to B for 1 rupee per packet. So that secondary discount they provided is not included, is not excluded from the value of supply. And no claim bonus. No claim bonus is generally is nothing but, for example, at the time of taking the policy or at the time of renewal of the current policy, insurance company providing some discount from the payment of the premium. Say the policy holder is there and insurance company. While taking the policy, they have to pay some premium. Say 1 lakh premium is paid. Then some discount is provided. Say 10,000 is provided. Then the remaining 90,000 is nothing but what? Net payment. This net payment is a taxable. Net payment is taxable. Coming to this one is called as what? No claim bonus. No claim bonus, and no separate activity done in relation to this one. So it is not considered as a part of consideration. Net payment is only liable. So the discount or no claim bonus is eligible for exclusion from the value of supply. Exclusion from the value of supply. So it has to permissible deduction under section 15(3)(a) for the purpose of calculation of value of supply. Accordingly, where the deduction of NCB is provided in the invoice issued by insurer to the insured, GST will be levied on actual insurance premium amount payable by the policyholder to the supplier. What is the actual insurance amount they paid? 90,000. On that 90,000 only the liable. Means after reduction of NCB mentioned in the invoice. Okay, so this is about what? Value of supply, nothing but section 15(1), 15(2), and 15(3). 15(1) is relating to what is meant by transaction value, 15(2) is relating to inclusion, 15(3) is relating to exclusions from the value of supply. Okay, I hope you understood. Okay, thank you.